Hello, welcome back for this third tutorial. In this video, we will see how to install the hgl-editor through the Python package manager. We will then quickly explore what has been installed on your system. Finally, we will see how to create maps through the hgl-editor. Doing so, we will touch on subjects like game design. One important point, this video is a prerequisite to the upcoming fourth tutorial, but also to the upcoming third episode of the Shorty series, as it will cover loading and using level design in the editor. This tutorial is already packed with information, so we are not going to cover that part. First of all, let's see how to install the hgl-editor in its own dedicated environment. Before we start, you need Python 3 installed on your system. Do that before continuing with this video. You should install Python 3 through the package manager, the software center of your operating system. For systems that don't have a package manager, go to python.org and maybe install a better operating system. Python has a wonderful feature, the virtual environment. It allows you to install modules and programs in a separate environment. That is to say, without polluting your system installation. Let's see how it works. First, I make sure I have the virtualenv package, and I use --user to make sure the package is installed in my own user environment, not system-wide. Then I create a virtual environment. This generates a new directory. Let's change directory and list the directory content. We can see a bunch of folders that replicates a standard Unix directory structure. Unix is like Linux or macOS. We will spend a bit more time on that later. For the moment, we can see in the bin directory that we have something called activate, and we need to source that to turn on the virtual environment. As you can see, the look of my command line has changed. It's called the prompt. It's now prefixed by hgl. This tells me that the virtual environment is on. I now have extra commands, and more importantly, I'm going to use the Python versions and libraries from that environment and not from my system until I deactivate the virtual environment. Did I mention it was simple? Speaking of deactivating the environment, you simply use the deactivate command to do it. Let's reactivate it and move forward. We haven't talked about PyPy yet. PyPy is a centralized Python package index, hence the name PyPI. It allows you to install packages securely and with very simple steps. Let's see that. At the moment of recording of this video, the library is only available on the test version of PyPy. So I have to specify the index I want to use. But in general, and as soon as I finish writing the module's documentation, you just type pip3 install the name of your module. So let's quickly review what has been installed. You have the entirety of the game-lim module in the lib directory, and in the bin directory you have 3 scripts that are prefixed by hgl-. One of that script is the hgl-base_game.py script. This is an example game that shows you a bit of the possibilities offered by the hgl-editor. Let's start it to see that. So as you can see, we have trees, we have walls. These are structures that cannot be overlapped. We have 3 NPCs, we have a unicorn and 2 skulls. The unicorn is static. The 2 skulls are moving following a path thanks to the path actuator class. We have 2 diamonds that are pickable objects. They're actually treasure objects from the structure's modules. They increase the score. We have 2 hearts that restore life, and a blue portal. The unicorn is actually an NPC you can interact with. It has dialogues and actions. It can damage us on demand. This allows us to test the hearts. The blue restores only a small part of your player's life, while the sparkly red one set him to full life. In the fourth tutorial, we're going to see how to make these objects. The unicorn can also restore our full life too. It's just to show that it's really easy to interact with the player. It's literally one line of code. You should have a look at it. Interacting with a player can also mean to give him rewards on certain events. This is implemented in UniPC's riddles. If you answer correctly, you will get a reward. The reward has a high value and massively increases the score. However, if you fail to correctly answer the riddle, you'll get an anti-reward that removes points from the score. The portal sends you to a different level with tons of NPCs. that moves according to a random actuator, so they randomly move in a random direction. As you can see, there is no clear pattern in their movements. You can also see that none of them is able to take the treasure. It's because there's a permission system for pickable items and we are forbidding NPCs from picking them up. This game is always evolving to show more features of the hgl-lib, so you should expect it to be different if you're watching this video more than a month after its release. Now let's switch to the editor. The hgl-editor allows you to quickly create elements or items to place on a board. We call it a level when you have placed all the elements that create an homogeneous game experience. As we never started the editor in our virtual environment, there is no HAC maps directory found. Don't worry, it will be created automatically. Let's start by creating a new map. First, you need to give it a name, a number of columns and a number of rows. You can start small as you can increase it after. Important point, you can only increase the size of the map after, not decrease it. Now let's see the interface of the editor. At the top you have a status bar. It tells you the current mode, which is edit by default, the board you are working on, and the basic information, name and size. And it gives you the coordinates of your cursor in the board. The cursor is represented by the double brackets. That's the only thing inside our empty board right now. Then we have the item history. It's empty at the moment, but it will populate as we work on our level. Then come the current item, also empty. And finally, the menu. The menu contains many entries. Space to switch between edit and delete mode, 0 to 9 to select an item in history to be the current item, AWSD to move the cursor left, up, down, right. Be careful, however. The editor is coded using the hgl-lib. The cursor is a player object, and you will take pickable objects from the map. They end up in the inventory that is not displayed in the editor. hgl to place current item and then move cursor, left, up, down, right. C to create a new board item. P to modify the board parameter. Capital P to set the player's starting position. Capital S to save the current board. Plus to save the board and create a new one. Capital L to save the board and load a new one. Then you have M to switch the menu display between full and hidden. And finally capital Q to quit the editor. Let's see what they are really doing. When you hit C, you are brought to the item creation wizard and you have to choose between NPC and structure. NPCs are non-playable characters that you can use to interact with your player. They can be friends, foes, or neutrals. Structures are the items you will put on your board to design a level. Let's start with them. There, you have to choose between 5 types of items. 3 of them are predefined objects and 2 of them are generic objects. The generic actionable object is the coolest, but we will cover it in its own video. Choice 4 is a generic object in case you want to do something specific. Then you have choice 1 to 3 that are a wall, a door, or a treasure. A wall is a structure that you can't cross or anyone. A door is a structure that the player and or the NPC can go through, and a treasure, it can be picked up and take space in the inventory and give point to the players. Let's start by creating a tree object. I'll hit 1 because I want my tree to be basically like a wall, non-overlappable and non-pickable, but with a tree representation. Now I have to choose the representation or model. The model wizard is the same for all objects. As my terminal is fine with sprites, emoji really, I'm going to hit 2 for sprites. We'll see what are colored square later. I now need to choose the model for my tree. I'll go with 155. Beware, you need to hit the return key when you have typed your desired sprite number. Now, our current item is a freshly created one. It also became item number 0 in our item history. Now, to place your items on the map, you have to use the hgl keys. They allow you to move in a direction, leaving the current item at your starting position. Let's see how it works. Here, I want to create a small patch of trees. I'm moving with AWSD to the desired position and then place the trees with hgl. Let's make a first patch. Now, this board looks really cramped and too small. Let's hit P to modify the board parameters. Here we can change lots of parameters like the models of the board borders and the model of the void cell. If I want to use alien face as void model, here is the result. Not terribly amazing if you ask me. Let's get it back to its default model. Now let's hit 1 for colored square and rectangle. Here you can choose between a variety of colored square and rectangles. Let's choose 1 for a black square. This is much better. Something you need to take in consideration in your level design if you use sprites is that they rely on your terminal's support of emojis. Most emojis take 2 characters to display. So as a rule of thumb, I'm always using square or build squares out of rectangles to maintain graphic coherence. Let me show you what happens if you mix rectangles and emojis. It creates interesting rendering and optical geometry issues. Let's use the double colored square to see what's happening here. As you can see, the emoji is taking 2 characters. Now let's make this board bigger by changing the width to 50 and the height to 30. That's much better. I'll go ahead and create a wall with a brick wall model. Then I'll use the wall to mark the limit of a river. Now the problem is that I'm like the player of our game. I'm stuck on this side of the river because the walls prevent me from crossing. So I'll need to remove some walls to create a path. That's when you want to carefully hit the space key. It will set the editor to delete mode, and now the JIKL keys delete items instead of placing them. Then hit space again to finish creating the bridge. Deleting and placing items is something you will do a lot while designing your levels. You can select an item in the history by hitting its number. Let's put trees on each side of our bridge, for example. By the way, if you don't need to display the menu, just hit M. It will hide and show the menu. When you're in a delete mode, you can delete items from history by hitting their key numbers. Let's delete the wall from history. Now we need to recreate it as we will need it. The rest of the menu options are to save the map. I encourage you to do that often as the editor is in alpha version. It can crash, particularly if you hit a key that is not allowed. If you save and quit, you will be able to load your map and continue editing it, including the history. Now, let's talk about level design. The goal of this level is going to make a portal to the next level appear in the center of the patch of trees. To do so, the player will add to collect the octopuses, and then give them to the whales so they have friends. As a thank you, the whales are going to extinguish the fire on the bridge. With this, the player will have access to the forest maze. At the center of it lies the portal fairy. The player needs to talk to her to open the portal. The labyrinth is going to have hidden traps that explode when the player comes too close. If we have things that can damage the player, we need to give him or her the opportunity to heal. This will be done with a scroll hidden in the middle of the magic fountain. The scroll will automatically set the player to full life if he dies. It will be consumed on action. Phew, that's a lot of steps. First, we need the water of the river to look like water. It needs to be blue. To do so, we can create an item that is overlappable, not pickable, and blue. Actually, there's 2 ways of doing so, using the structures.door class or building our own custom item. Since it's quicker to just use a door with a water model, we will do that. Now we need to create a hole in our walls to put the water in. While we are filling the river, let's remember our path. So we went right 11 times, up 5 times, right 6 times, down 15 times, right 11 times, down 4 times, right 2 times, down 1 time, and then we'll need to reverse. For the second part of the river, we went down 3 times, right 10 times, down 22 times, left 2 times, and then we need to reverse. We will use that information right now to create the path of our wells. Here we are going to face the limit of the editor as it is right now. To have two NPC with two different movement paths, we will need to create two different NPCs. If we create the path in Python, we could use one NPC and two different paths. To create a path, you should use a path actuator. Let's create our first well. Hit C, then 1. Give it a name and then a type. The type is important as it is an information that can help us differentiate our two wells. Here I'll use left well and right well. We now need to set the model. Then there is a lot of information to set. For now, just use the default values by hitting the Enter key. Now is the time to set the movement. Select 2, following a predetermined path, and then 9, write your own path. In this mode, we will use the direction words to create a path. So, 11 right,
5 up, 6 right, 15 down, 11 right, 4 down, 2 rights, 1 down, and reverse. So, 2 left, 5 up, as we need to compensate for the down of the current turnaround, 11 left, 15 up, 6 left,
5 down, and 11 left. Here's our well in the water, and we close the wall. Now, let's save our map and test that movement. To do so, save and quit using capital Q. Say yes to save. We are now going to use the last script installed with the hgl-editor, hgl-editor.py. This script takes a map and a number of turns to run the map. Let's do 200 turns for the first test. This utility also allows you to test your game as the player. For example, let's open our editor again and set a starting position for our player. Let's quit and save and then use hgl-editor.py, but this time instead of setting the number of rounds to 200, let's set it to 0. It will allow us to explore the level as a player. In this mode, the AWSD keys are the direction keys and Q is the shortcut to quit the program. Now it's time to finish our board. I'm going to do that quickly, stopping only to explain new concepts. I'll use the tree we already defined to make most of the labyrinth. Now I need to create a new object, the octopus. I'll use a structure.treasure as this one is ready to be picked up and put in the player's inventory. And I need 2 of them. I need a new well with the path we saved before. Please note that I'm changing the type to use right well this time. We then need to place the well. Now, let's create the portal fairy. One trick is that we're going to give her 0 steps of movement per turn, so she won't move. That being said, we can just give her a random actuator. It has no importance. Now it's time for our last trick. We're going to create a tree that is not really a tree. It's going to be our secret passage to the fairy. So, let's create a door with a slightly different tree model. To finish the labyrinth, we need two more objects, an explosion and a mega explosion. The mega explosion kills the player. The other one just removes a fifth of his or her life. So, to do that, we are going to use a generic actionable item, and it is only going to be a placeholder as we need to code their behavior. The generic actionable item allows us to trigger actions when the player activates it. The mega explosion is only needed at the fake entrance of the portal fairy lair. Let's place them. We need 5 simple explosions per wrong path. Indeed, we don't want the player to go this way, and we want him to die. So if he has the resurrection scroll, 5 explosions are going to kill him, then he's going to be resurrected by the scroll, and then he will die again on the mega explosion. Once they're positioned, we don't need them anymore. We will delete them as we are limited to 10 items in the history for the moment. Now, we need only to seal the bridge with fire to satisfy our level design plan. But before that, let's put some stuff in the empty space of the bottom left corner. This is where the magical fountain is going to be. Done! Now we need some fire to block the bridge passage. I'll make it to be a wall-like structure with a fire model. We need 1 fire per well. Finally, we can also populate the upper part of the river. Last but not least, we need a placeholder for our portal. Let's build one. It is going to be a generic actionable structure too, and we will use the whirlpool emoji. And that concludes our first level design. Without being too academic, we still introduced a number of notions here like the game design, placeholders, callbacks. We are going to detail these notions in the upcoming videos. Just note that all the placeholders are going to require code writing in the main game script. As you can see, there is still a couple of things that are not perfect, like the river. We will fix that in the code. But we still design a whole level in a very short time, and that includes the movement of the NPCs. All this without a single line of code. Additionally, make sure to watch the third episode of the Shorty series, as we are going to see how to load and manipulate the map we generated. Please visit the article that goes with this video on astro.hyrule.es for the command lines and the map file. Try stuff for yourself and start creating levels for a whole game. Thank you for watching. If you like our content, please consider subscribing and activate the notification. See you next time!